Hi, my name is Jennifer Bryan, and I am the GM of Content Marketing at Nebraska Furniture Mart. We're back with another episode of Retail Therapy, and I'm super excited today to talk with our Director of HR, Megan Barlow. She's got the best stories, and I'm so glad you're here. She's been with the company for a very long time. Welcome.
Well, hi, Jennifer. Thanks.
So, speaking of a long time, could you tell us a little bit about your role, how long you've been with the company, and that journey?
Absolutely. I have been with Nebraska Furniture Mart almost 18 years. Will be next month, so it is kind of a long time. And overseeing HR is really a large division at Nebraska Furniture Mart. So that encompasses recruiting, benefits, compensation, our safety and workers' compensation. We've got communications now, internal communications. We also deal with kind of our social media team, which is, partly communications and then culture as well. What else have I missed? We've got human resources information systems, which is the fancy word for the system that kind of interfaces with payroll. And while payroll doesn't report to human resources at Nebraska Furniture Mart, we work closely with our payroll partners. So yeah, it's a large organization. We've got about 50 HR partners, including training. Thought of another one.
Yes, you guys cover a lot. There's always, and I think people oftentimes think, oh, HR, it's just either payroll or if I, have a question about my PTO or something like that, I can go to HR. But you guys have a lot of responsibilities that are super important to the company. Now, to back up just one step, so almost 18 years, what has your journey throughout the company been? Have you been in HR that entire time, or what does that look like?
I have. I moved from Texas 20 years ago and got my job at Nebraska Furniture Mart. It's kind of a good story. When we moved here, we bought an old house and I needed furniture. My husband, who is a native Nebraskan, said, well, we have to go to Nebraska Furniture Mart. It's so big. And I said, I'm from Texas. How big could it be? And I actually went and was kind of overwhelmed. And I remember having to sit down and stop. So about 2 years after that, I got my job at Nebraska Furniture Mart and really haven't looked back since. The company since then has expanded to our Des Moines and in Kansas City and Dallas locations. So it's been nice to be at a company that's growing and be part of that growth.
Well, I remember I was in Texas when they broke ground on the Texas store, and there were a lot of fun jokes that you could tell on, it's Texas big, but it's Nebraska Furniture Mart. I could at least tell people what it was, because it is huge and you've got to visit. So you mentioned the kind of different areas of your team throughout the company. Help us understand a little bit, or people who maybe don't know as much, what other important roles that HR plays for a company other than those maybe they would automatically think of.
I think it really depends on the organization. So, for example, in some companies, that is what HR does. They just hire people, process their paperwork, and make sure that I get a paycheck every week. But we're lucky at Nebraska Furniture Mart that when we talk about valuing our workforce, and we refer to employees as the NFM family, we really mean it. So HR has that what's often referred to as seat at the table. And that just means that when any decision is being made throughout the organization, HR is there to really talk about what the impact would be on the workforce. And I'm proud of that because, I'm part of the NFM family too, so I like being someplace where I know people are really valued.
Yes, I agree. And I know from talking to your team in a variety of different ways that they're incredible and they do a whole lot. And as with all the departments, and we've talked about this in the other retail therapies that I filmed with some of our team, we've all had to make some shifts because of COVID and everything that's been going on. We're outside right now, so we can be safe and socially distant. So if you hear construction work next door, that's what it is. But how has that affected your team? And then also what your team has done for all of the other departments in the organization during this time?
I would say it's been rough and it's been great at the same time. So we said, I don't know how, because this doesn't always work this way, but I kind of knew at the start of COVID, this is going to be something big, long-lasting, and real. So I went to 2 departments and said, hey, you guys need to go home this week and start figuring out how to work from home. So, for a lot of people, if you just can kind of independently do your work on a computer and maybe email back and forth with your manager, that's one thing. But we had to figure out how to hire people, interface with all the recruiting platforms we use, just keep the flow of paperwork back and forth. We interface with government agencies. So we had an awful lot of work to figure out in a short amount of time. And so I'm really proud of the HR team for doing that. But at the same time, there were other divisions that were trying to send people home too, really with 2 things in mind. Like, how do we keep our workforce the safest while protecting their jobs? That's, safety is part of that. Your job and your career and your stability, that's all part of your internal safety. So I'm really proud of the way we responded in having staff members work from home. Because we did it pretty quickly, and we weren't an organization that had a big jump on that. We did have one area in particular that had been hiring permanent staff to work from home, but we now have managers that have quickly pivoted, and they're hiring people in different regions. That won't even, like, I will manage someone that doesn't even live in the state that I work in. So, like I said, I'm really proud of the NFM family for moving so quickly on that important area.
Well, I would also applaud your department on the role that you played in keeping morale up too. I think the amount of communication that your team has put out to the entire company to drive home messages that maybe you guys are having with the directors in the upper level and with our executive team, to make sure that everybody is aware of the choices that we're making and what we're doing, and feels good about the decisions that are being made as a company when we are all in separate places now.
That was important, and also a little bit different. Like, and that's not typically what we've done with internal communication. We had to just be as fact-based and transparent as we could, and it was uncomfortable because even today, months after COVID really first hit, we still don't know an awful lot about how it's transmitted necessarily or things like that. So we were trying daily to have members of the HR staff, somebody listened to each one of the state governors' conferences or meetings they had every day. We had somebody that was solely assigned to reading the CDC website daily, because we wanted to have the policies and the ways that we were acting represent what we should be doing, as a company and as a nation. But we also then had to communicate that back to our staff, and that was literally happening on a daily basis. So yeah, we again responded pretty quickly. It wasn't always comfortable, but we got really high marks from the NFM family for just, again, being transparent.
Yes, well, I know that I appreciated it. So
you're welcome.
Team. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So another great source of pride, I know for you, but just for the company in general, is that in over 8 decades that this company has been up and running, we have never had layoffs. And so even though we had to make the tough decision back in March to temporarily close our showrooms, we kept online open, but we did some furloughs, but everybody is back now. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how it's, I think, again, kind of led to that positive morale and people being excited about what's ahead?
It was positive, but I will tell you first off, that was the single hardest day of my career ever. And I can even feel myself right now just having to think back then. We'd been around for 83 years. I know so many of the staff members personally. I participated in the opening of 2 of our 4 showrooms. So furloughing people isn't easy, and it's something that we hadn't done. So I think not knowing how to do it was a good thing. You don't want to have to furlough people, but then having to navigate some of the technical side of it while you're still trying to keep their emotions and their families and their livelihoods and all those things at the forefront was really difficult. But you're right. On, I think it was June 29th, I posted on social media that it was the happiest day of my career ever, because every single person that was furloughed at Nebraska Furniture Mart had the opportunity to have their job back. We had some really long-term employees that made the decision that now is maybe a good time to retire and things like that. And it was just good to know though that there were options. That everybody could work if they wanted to. We were flexible in the work. We had, for example, over half of the HR staff was working outside of HR. Because the business, where the customers needed us, that's where our workforce needed to be. I'm also happy to report that with just a few exceptions, most of the HR staff is back. But that happened everywhere. We've just got staff shifting wherever they need to go, and that's when you realize why the business is successful. When people understand the mission, what we're really trying to do day in and day out. It's not about me. It's about we. It's about the customer. Nobody said no. Nobody batted an eye. Nobody put up a fuss. Everyone just said, "Where do you need me? I'll go. I'll work until, you need me somewhere else." So I'm really proud of that as well.
Well, and sometimes it's an unexpected opportunity to learn something new, to say, well, maybe I have a passion about something a little bit different, so maybe I'm in HR, but I'm going to go help out the social media team, or whatever it is that you're going to do during that time period, and it gives you a little glimpse into other areas of the company that maybe you didn't know, and I think that's really awesome. And
I would say that's also an opportunity outside of a pandemic. NFM has had those opportunities since we're such a big organization and we're growing, that people can do that even in regular times. You can job shadow. We've got some intern programs, like one that I'm really excited about. We've got an IT intern program. So, IT tends to be kind of a hot job field, and it's a great place to build a career, but you have to have education and training in that. So if you've been working at NFM for 10 or 15 years, not in the IT technology area, it's going to be hard to get that experience. So we developed a program where staff can go and job shadow a couple days a week, and then they keep their regular job, and at the end of that period, a decision is made mutually about if that person could shift permanently into that role. And I like things like that. I like giving people opportunities because we have them as a large organization.
Well, and that was one of the incredible things about talking to Tony Bolt, our president, about his journey over the past, almost 2 decades, and starting in the warehouse and moving up through that. So giving people the opportunity to learn and grow, and then you don't know where, sky's the limit where you could end up. So speaking of that, I know that we are hiring. So we're grateful to say that we're busier than ever, but we, now need to increase that workforce to meet the demand, and we are hiring. Can you tell us about that?
We are hiring. We are hiring. That is the truth. So, it's definitely the good news thing about being, I feel like a little bit of a broken record, a stable company, that we've just had a long-term growth strategy, and we're kind of not a flash in the pan. So when COVID hit and, we had a really good online presence, and so online sales have kicked up like they have in, probably many other industries. But because we took pretty strict safety protocols, we were able to open our showrooms up quickly. So then in retail, the retail showroom kicked back up. And we have something that's a little bit unique. I think we have a dedicated phone sales team that, if you're hesitant about buying something like furniture online, you can actually talk with a person that can, talk you through it. So with those 3 avenues, sales really just kept going and going and going, and as a result now we need people to help fulfill all those orders for our customers. So it's a really exciting time. We've kicked off lots of new technology to make that happen. We are doing virtual job fairs. We have implemented a new texting tool to communicate more easily with applicants that prefer to be communicated with that way. Really just kind of cutting out any of the fat in the process that applicants hated anyway. No one likes waiting around, to hear about a job. You wonder, did they even get my application, that kind of thing. So we really try to get all of that waste out of the system and get straight to, would you like working here, and would you be a good fit for this organization? So, I'm excited to say we've got upwards of 400 jobs right now, which is a pretty big number considering that, lots of our economy still hasn't rebounded yet. So if you are looking for stable work at a growing company where there's opportunities abound, you can look at nfm.com/careers and tell them I sent you.
That's right. It's a good plug and a necessary one. I mean, I know that the way that companies are still trying to rebound from this, we know that there are delays. We know that there are things that we're continually trying to work through as a company. So the fact that we are hiring all of these people to help meet that demand and help get things out to people, I think that's important. We're doing everything we can. One of the things that I think also comes up when we are hiring is that we won a Glassdoor award for being an employer of choice. Will you give any details on that?
I will. That was, I hate to say this, but it was kind of a surprise. Like, we've always known we were a great place to work, but I didn't really know that we were competing on kind of that big national stage. And so when we got the call about the award, it was pretty exciting. And, I still go through every week and I look at the reviews that have been left on Glassdoor, and I respond to people individually. And I love hearing the things that people have to say. It's a little bit of what you've talked about. People like the opportunity. People like the transparency. It's retail. It's hard work, 7 days a week. The customers need us all the time, and so you have to be able to, kind of work in a retail environment. But people understand that, if you'll put in the effort, you will be rewarded greatly through really great benefits and a solid compensation plan that rewards top performers.
Yes. I think that another super important thing just in the world right now, and that needs to be a continued conversation in companies, is diversity and inclusion. And so I'm also proud that one of the things that has been rolled out is a new diversity and inclusion program at NFM that includes training and some other things, and I was hoping you could share some about that.
Absolutely. A lot of companies, it is like a new thing, and there's a program, and you get a t-shirt, and there's a name for it and everything, and we're working in that direction. But, I like to remind people that Nebraska Furniture Mart was founded by a female that fled her homeland in Russia because of religious persecution. And so our roots really are about diversity and acceptance. And I think that we just, as a company, had kind of a humble nature, and we didn't really talk about that a whole lot. And we now have an opportunity to remind ourselves of that this whole thing about accepting people and valuing differences is really who we were 83 years ago. It's not who we're trying to be today. Now, with that said, we can do better. We need to do better. We will do better. But I'm always kind of, it gives me pause to remind myself that this is, it's going to be a little bit easier for us than it might be from some companies because we're not having to turn the boat around, so to speak. But, I am excited because what we're doing today is we started with a survey of our staff. We just asked them, what do you think about the company? We asked about some core areas like leadership, your manager, development opportunities, programs that you're aware of. And we really said, instead of having some people in HR like me just sit around and make a diversity plan, which wouldn't be very diverse because it would just be my opinion. But so we said, let's take the feedback of all 4,600 workers in the Nebraska Furniture Mart family and see where we need to go first, what areas we need, we have the biggest opportunity. We just got the results back from that, and I'm excited that, we have some plans in place already. But as that was going on, we also knew that you have to start with leadership. Because, if you just say, well, HR has a new diversity plan, it starts on Tuesday, you have to take a class, that's not very authentic. So we found an organization to partner with that, interestingly enough, has about an 80-year history in the Omaha community that also was working at the same time that we were to end racism based on religious preferences. So anyway, working with that organization, we've done a couple of training classes. We started with our executive team, and then we had 2 sessions of, it ended up being about 90 people that self-identified as people that said, I actually want to be part of this. I want to be part of all the change that's going to happen. So those people have all been trained. We will be doing a train-the-trainer for that same program and rolling it out to all staff. But at the same time, we already had on the slate, again, diversity isn't like a new thing for us. So we already had on the slate to do unconscious bias training this year. So that will be coming out here, I think, just in about 2 weeks. So all of our executive and senior leaders will take that class first. Again, we really have the belief that if this doesn't start from the top and isn't really truthful from the top down level, that it's not worth the effort. It's just, kind of talk, so to speak. So anyway, excited about all the training that's coming down the pike. And then, again, really just seeing, based on that survey and the feedback of our staff, where should we be focusing our efforts? So a lot going on, but I'm, again, reminded that Rose Pumpkin really started it off.
Yes. Well, I'm looking forward to all of that too, and I think to your point, it's not just a now because it's such an important topic with everything going on in the world right now, but it's ongoing, and it's something that you do all the time every year, and you bring your people in on it, and you make sure that they are all contributing, and that if they want to be a part of it, they can, and so that it feels that much more authentic and really close to home.
Yeah, Jennifer, we talked about that. This isn't something that will be done at the end of 2020 or 2021. As Tony Bolt has said out loud, this is a 4 or 5 year effort, and that's just the education, the understanding, and the awareness to really start, making improvements. I would see this being something that we do from now going forward with no end in sight. So
good, that's important. So wrapping things up, I like to ask people what one of their favorite parts of their job is. I led this in saying you had really fun stories, so don't let us down. But just in general, there's probably a lot of fun parts. But if you had to narrow it down,
a couple things come to mind. So, I work at a company where our president started in the smallest warehouse that we have, and it's pretty impressive to think that a person, in a warehouse, in a little tiny warehouse, not even the big warehouse, would be the president of a company. So I love seeing the opportunity that's available to every single person at NFM. I have to kind of, when you work in HR, you get to see some of the really fun stuff. You get to see a lot of babies. People have babies, they bring them in. That's always fun. Working with our culture, we get to, party plan and celebrate people's job anniversaries and personal anniversaries as well. And it's been about 2 weeks now, but we had our second longest working employee retire. And just to get to celebrate someone who worked at a business for 52 years was really impressive. So I think there's probably some things like, benefits are great and the pay at Nebraska Furniture Mart is great, but what I really enjoy is the people. Just seeing the people day in and day out, see how they succeed personally and professionally. It's nice to work some things like that.
Well, on that note, it was really nice to see people and to hang out
Yeah,
with you.
it is. People without masks on.
Yeah, well, we appreciate
Yeah.
you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today and share really important information and hiring over 400 jobs in all 4 regions. So
Absolutely.
we'll get those filled up. But thank you.
You're welcome, Jennifer. I appreciate it very much. Have a good one.
You too.